After the 1830s wave of industrialists and pioneers settled Dubuque, the area saw an influx of immigrants bringing with them their skills, culture, and beliefs. Within the first year settlers were allowed to cross the river, Dubuque had its first Christian congregation with St. Luke's Methodist Church.
St. Luke's is the oldest non-Native American congregation in Iowa. In September 1833, the Illinois Conference of the Methodist Church, that time called the Methodist Episcopal Church, appointed Barton Randall to serve the Dubuque settlement. So in November of 1833, he came to Dubuque and he preached his first sermon in Julian Tavern, basically where the Julian Hotel now stands.
Before the end of 1834, St. Luke's moved into its first worship center, a small log cabin that is remembered by a plaque in Washington Park. While St. Luke's was Dubuque's first, it didn't take long for churches of every denomination to pop up around it.
And I think one reason why Dubuque has so many churches is because you had large Irish population and a large German population, and people wanted to go to church in their own language. And so one reason why you had so many churches, they wanted to have two of everything, because they wanted to have like the English language Catholic Church and the German language Catholic Church, and the English language Methodist Church and the German language Methodist Church.
Like St. Luke's, many of those original congregations still offer services to this day. However, as generations passed and languages other than English became less common, there were clear overlaps in worship centers. On the Catholic side, the German Catholic Church of St. Mary's was erected in 1867, 10 years before the Irish Catholic Church of St. Patrick's. For decades, the sister parishes operated in harmony a mere 5 blocks apart on East 15th Street. But in 1918, at the height of World War I, Iowa Governor William Harding signed the Babel Proclamation, banning foreign languages in public use, including church. Over the next 100 years, St. Mary's attendance dipped, to the point that in 2010, the church was actually deconsecrated and considered for possible demolition.
They really had no plan other than try to sell the building separately. So they wanted to look at kind of how could we kind of have a comprehensive plan for repurposing these buildings so that they didn't have to be torn down.
Today, the 4 buildings that were St. Mary's are now Steeple Square, a nonprofit community hub offering housing, childcare, shelter, and event space. The structure and the spirit of St. Mary's lives on through the Steeple Square mission of restoring lives, neighborhood empowerment, and community vibrancy.
Those are the major components of what we're about, and again, all focused on first saving this beautiful historic campus, and then quickly focusing on how we could revitalize the neighborhood and help people advance themselves at the same time.
The initial construction of St. Mary's took 3 years, from 1864 to 1867. It was designed in the Gothic Revival style of architecture, with its key feature being its towering steeple.
The elements of Gothic architecture are the pointed arch windows, the stained glass, the large volume of space, the height, the tall, slender tower and spire, and a lot of decoration. And you can imagine in the 1860s that a 212-foot tall steeple was a huge landmark, kind of in this area that was a pioneering area at the time. It was really the frontier. And we really don't know how they constructed the tower, because again, it would have required pretty sophisticated construction equipment even in today's times to build something that's that tall.
When renovations began in 2014, the goal was to retain as much of the structure's character while refitting the campus for its nonprofit mission. Construction began by converting the old elementary school into affordable housing. Next came restoring the steeple, which had fallen into disrepair over its 150-year life. The third phase of the renovation saw the priest rectory converted into a child care center, with 70% of the clientele being low-income families. Finally, the fourth phase in 2019 focused on the former worship center, now community center.
This is used as our revenue generating piece to support our mission work. So we hold everything here from wedding ceremonies to receptions to celebrations of life, private parties, some business meetings. In the lower level of the building we're in, and we partner with Northeast Iowa Community College to provide vocational training for underserved populations. We've held culinary classes here. We also have a large multi-purpose room that's can be used for vocational training and rentals, again, for businesses, for private parties, and that type of thing.
In 1912, there was a major renovation of the church. But really what we see here right now, it's the 1912 design, but the colors from the 1950s. My favorite feature of this building are the stained glass windows, just because they tell the story of the life of St. Mary, but they also tell the story of the German craftsmanship. And the interesting thing about that is that we developed here at Steeple Square, we developed a workshop to teach local people how to restore stained glass. So every single one of the windows that are in this building have been restored using that process, using local people who have learned that new skill. And several people that have worked on that project are now working on crews, restoration crews. They've learned that skill of restoration.
Dubuque also has the good luck to be home to the largest collection of Tiffany stained glass windows, which happens to be in place at St. Luke's.
So when this church first opened, it had 5 very large Tiffany windows. However, today we have 125. Most of those went in the early 19-teens, right before World War I. Louis Comfort Tiffany came from the Tiffany family, of course the Tiffany jewelry family, but he decided to go in a different direction. His patent was for opalescent glass, which is a clear kind of wavy glass. And so most of our windows are opalescent glass or this mostly clear, sometimes colored wavy glass that just has a medallion at the top. So each window was commissioned by a particular family. And then today, all the windows have 2 plaques. So when you look at, again, the Good Shepherd window, so that window was bought by the family of Judge D.N. Cooley, so it says in stained glass, in memoriam D.N. Cooley. And that second plaque is the people who donated to restore the window.
Dubuque skyline will always be lined with impressive and historic spires. Rather than relegating St. Mary's to photos and essays of Dubuque's past, Steeple Square has solidified it by stopping the wrecking ball and renovating one of the staples of the city's skyline. Steeple Square has ensured the next 100 years of its life.
Here we have a building that the community can still use. It's a resource that will attract people because of its beauty. It will attract people because of its history and heritage. And it will last way longer than any sort of new construction because they were built to last.